here in this video, we're going to give you 5 tips to help you pass the bar exam. So our first tip is that we recommend you focus on the highly tested areas of law to make sure that you are using your study time as efficiently as possible. So when we say that you should focus on the highly tested areas of law, this doesn't mean that our advice is to ignore any sort of subject or any sort of issue within a subject. In fact, ignoring something is a very dangerous approach to the bar. But instead, this advice is just telling you that if you shift your focus to those frequently or highly tested areas of law, it's going to make sure that when you do have time to study, you're maximizing your chances of success. Because if you sit down and study all day, but you're studying things that are just not that highly tested, and you're missing those things that are highly tested, you can dedicate many hours to this type of practice, but it's not going to put you in the best position possible to pass. So if you're wondering how you can get your hands on this information about what is highly tested, when it comes to the essay portion of the exam, look at our frequency charts and look at our one-sheets. Additionally, when it comes to the MBE or the multiple choice portion of your bar exam, the National Conference of Bar Examiners tells us the frequency in which topics within each subject are tested. So again, you can get that information there as well as our website, and it can help guide you about how to spend your time more efficiently. Our second tip to help you pass the bar exam is that we recommend that you practice with real released questions. We are very aware of the fact that many bar exam and bar prep companies out there do make up their own questions, their own MBE questions, their own essay questions, maybe even their own MPT questions. And it's not that these are bad things to practice. They're a fine resource for you to use. But if you are going to use made up or simulated questions, make sure that you're also cycling in some real released questions into your practice as well. The best resource is to practice real questions. Here at JD Advising, we have real essay questions and real MPTs, as well as those associated examiners analysis. And we also have real released MBE questions. So if you're looking for those resources, please check out our website and we have them available. If you're in any of our courses, we utilize all real released questions. Our third tip to help you pass the bar exam is when you are practicing, make sure that you're carving out enough time to actually review your answers to your MBE questions or to your MEE questions or to your MPT practice. A lot of people just sit down and they kind of go through the motions without taking time to actually see what they're doing right and to see what they're doing wrong. And in fact, this kind of ultimately leads to a waste of their time, because what good is practicing if they don't know how to change the things that they're doing that aren't helping them out. So when it comes to your MBE practice, we recommend something that we call the legal pad method. So whenever you do an MBE question and you get it wrong, make sure you write down the correct rule. The legal pad method is a great resource for you to review later. It can help you turn a weakness into a strength, which is excellent. When it comes to your essay practice, a lot of people write an essay and then they read the examiner's analysis and then they move on. I would beg you to take one more step. You should self-grade your essay. Put yourself in the mind of a grader. Pretend that you are a grader. And what you should do is compare issues. Have you identified the correct issues? Compare your rule statement. If it's wrong, fix it. Look at your analysis. Did you analyze all of the facts correctly, or did you bring in things that weren't relevant? Fix any errors that you made. And finally, compare your conclusion to the examiner's conclusion. If it's wrong, fix it. This is a great way to ensure that you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And after all, a lot of the issues that you do see on your practice MEEs will come up again. So this is a great way to maximize your chances of success, since it's likely that you're going to see some of those same issues that you practiced come up on the real bar exam. This is similar to our tip for the MPT. If you sit down and you practice and you write out an MPT, don't just read over the point sheet and say, okay, that's enough. Instead, you should get in the habit of self-grading your MPT. Use the point sheet and get your hands on a good student answer, or like a high-scoring student answer. And you should be trying to strike a balance between that point sheet which has every possible thing you could have talked about under the sun as it relates to that issue, as well as that good student answer. And again, this is a great way for you to see whether or not your organization and structure is on track. Our fourth tip for you to help you pass the bar exam is to take the MPT seriously. The MPT is something that so many examinees just overlook. They say, I did good in legal research and writing in law school, and I'm going to be fine here. But the reality is the MPT is worth 20% of your total bar exam score, or about 70 multiple choice questions. That's huge. And so many people put their MPT practice off until the end, and then they find that they just don't have time to get in enough time to practice. So our advice is to take the MPT seriously. And if you're taking the MPT seriously, you're doing two things. First of all, you're spending time memorizing those highly tested MPT tasks in their formats. That way, if they test a persuasive brief or an objective memo or a letter, you know exactly what it's supposed to look like. And this is going to yield you a healthy amount of points. The second thing you're doing if you're taking this seriously is you're regularly practicing MPTs. This means you're practicing about 1 to 2 MPTs each week under timed constraints. And our fifth and final tip to help you pass the bar exam is to learn how to memorize. This is really hard. In fact, it's probably one of the most frequently asked questions that we get here at JD Advising is, how do I memorize? And here there's a lot of things I could give you in terms of tips and suggestions, but I'm just going to give you a few that tend to help people the most. The first tip is repeat, repeat, repeat. Memorization is not a quick process. It's something that you have to do over and over and over again. This means that when you look at torts, you can't expect torts to be memorized after one study session. It's something that you'll have to pick back up over and over and over again. Our next tip for how to memorize is set up a retention schedule. A big error that people make is that they focus and they try to memorize a subject for a week and then they move on to the next subject the next week. And they never revisit those previous subjects that they previously put all that time into memorizing. So if you make a retention schedule, it's essentially where you outline a time to go back and review all of those previously mastered subjects. And you do this each week. This way, you're constantly reviewing this information. And our final tip to help you memorize is get familiar with your learning style. If you're an auditory learner, this means maybe you should quiz yourself or have someone quiz you or read the rules aloud. If you're more visual, maybe you should be focusing on getting colorful charts or color coding things or rewriting rules. By tapping into your learning style, it's going to maximize the time that you have to study and therefore maximize your chances of success. We hope that you found those tips for how to pass the bar exam helpful.